You do need to have stupid ideas and try them out to realize, and you never know, your stupid idea might actually click.
When you talk about the way, right, like what are some of the principles that you live by, right? So everyone has different principles, like how they approach business, how they approach life, right? How is it that you approach life these days, right, to become who you are today? Because obviously successful, right, and visionary.
While they were closed down is when I got the idea for the headlights. So
Okay.
I was totally in this mindset of designing a product, making it, manufacturing it. And I set out just to make one set of headlights for my own car.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've already done all the research. I found somebody to make parts for me. What's stopping me from making this into, a business?
In this episode, I sit down with George Mittal, the founder of Bangin Headlights, a company that specializes in LED headlights for classic cars. Going from being just a cog and slaving away as an accountant to making his mark as a global leader in a new automotive category. His story is nothing short of inspiring in the way that he pivoted and innovated to the level of success that he has attained in business as well as in his personal life. The way of an entrepreneur can be filled with roller coaster rides and amazing life experiences. And I can tell you that George's story is that and much more. It was an absolute delight conversing with him. Please enjoy this episode of The Way with Cheech Foo featuring George Mittal. George, Bangin Headlights, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Cheech, I'm very well. How you going?
Yeah, it's good, my man. It's been a while since we caught up, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how's things doing with you?
Things are good. Business is always exciting, always keeping me on my toes.
Yes.
So, yeah, can't complain.
Yes. And exactly one of the reasons why I really wanted you to come onto the show, George, because I think you and I caught up a few years ago, right? And even back then, you were already working on Bangin Headlights, right?
Yeah.
And then again, when we touched base about a couple of months ago, forming out this idea, coming onto the show, right? Yeah. Man, I was just so impressed, by what has transpired and it evolved with you, right?
Yeah. I forgot when I reached out to you, but it must have been like really early days of the website. And for me, when the website launched, it was a pretty hard launch because people had been really looking forward to products going on sale.
Yeah.
And after the first week, the number of visitors, it really plateaued out at a very low number in hindsight. Yeah. So at that point, I was like, okay, let's see what we can do to get people coming and seeing the website. That's when I reached out to you. But I've realized now that things take time. So
yes. And we'll definitely get into all that juicy part in a moment. So I kind of want to let's start with going back into your origin story, because yes, we will get to the Bangin Headlights, right? And that obviously is a very exciting journey. But on this podcast series, right, it's called The Way With Cheech Foo, and the way refers to the approach that one has throughout life. Everyone has a different way of seeing life and approaching life. Tell us, who is George Mittal? Give us the story. Who are you? Where you're from? Where you're born? The whole deal, my friend.
So I'm originally from India. I was born in India and I moved here when I was 18, and I've now lived more than half my life in Perth, in Australia. So,
okay.
That's kind of me, half and half.
Yes.
And so I told you about this. I haven't told a lot of other people in the Bangin Headlights world, but I used to be, or still am, I pay my fees, so I still am a chartered accountant. So I did the whole, the Asian way of getting a proper education and then getting a solid conservative professional career. And
yes.
And man, I really, in hindsight, I spent a lot of time doing stuff which I didn't really have any interest in at times in my career, because I worked in this field for over 10 years. At times I really did like it. And I had other friends who would say, we should start a business and do this and that. And I remember, this was now going back over 10 years. I'd say, why do you want to do a business? It's so easy to come to a job. All you have to do is figure out what clothes to wear and where you're going to have lunch. that was the only decision you have to make when you're working in a job. And it is so easy to, get comfortable doing the same thing, working for someone else, following instructions, and seeing a regular paycheck.
Yeah.
But at some point, I realized, no, I just can't keep doing this anymore. I was neither really enjoying it, nor was I, using any of the skills, which I don't know, skills or talent or something. Everybody has something in them which only they can do, or they do really well compared to others. And I always think if you aren't doing that, then you're just wasting your skills. Or if you've been given some quality which other people don't have and you don't use it, then what's the point? So
so I mean, entrepreneurial drive, right? Usually people kind of realize at a point in which that kind of kicked in, or maybe, right, it's always been a part of you, right? George, can you pinpoint a moment or moments in time, right, where that drive, really kind of, made its presence known?
I can actually.
All right.
So I don't know how you feel, but I've had bosses who are good bosses, and then some bosses who are just such terrible bosses. I think I'm just going to say it because I'm never going to work in that field anymore. Some of them were too stupid to realize the work I was doing, that it would have been easier for me to just cruise through and do bare minimum and just be the company man, rather than to push for some change or to improve processes. And many times I was doing that and they'd think that I was the troublemaker because I was trying to change things up. I always thought I was trying to make things better. And there was this, in my last job, there was this boss who was just so terrible. And I was like, what am I doing working for someone like this? He can't even understand what I'm trying to do. And I, during my probation, where, I don't think people ever do this, but when it was up for my probation, I said, no, I don't want this job anymore. And I quit that job, and I had a holiday plan. It was a family trip planned to Europe. And we traveled, and I had this other idea. I don't know if I've spoken to you about this. I had this other idea to make leather products. And so that family trip turned into like a 2-month long trip for me, where I found this Italian craftsman who, like, after a lot of negotiating, he agreed to teach me how to do leather work, hand stitching leather bags and like making really high-end stuff.
Yeah.
And that was the first business which I tried. So
okay, all right, before you go to that, right, like, just real quick, so obviously with that boss, right, was it more like recognition? Like, was that the main thing, that they're
not recognizing in some instances, but this was really, the whole system in that company was broken. Everything was convoluted. People were doing processes just because it had always been done that way. I always felt like, even if I did my job perfectly, it wouldn't matter if I did it at all. If I didn't do that work, nobody would notice that I hadn't even done that.
Not making any difference.
Exactly. Zero impact. Just paper pushing, compliance, sort of ticking the box, and
I mean, look, as a fellow immigrant, right, it is a very common pathway, right? Accounting and finance, as they always call it, right? So I think this journey would be definitely appreciated by many of our listeners as well. Okay, so Europe, right? 2 months. Now, where was it, especially in which location? How did you meet this master of leather, right?
This is in Florence. So
okay,
Florence, I don't know if you've been to Italy, but it's the center of leather craftsmanship in Italy. And before going, I looked at some schools that offer proper courses, but either they were super expensive or, the timing was not aligned with the time I was going to be there. So I was like, oh no, I'm going to be there. I might not be able to do it. So I was literally walking through the small buy lanes, looking at shops. And then I came across this one shop where there was this elderly guy, sitting and actually working on a sewing machine and doing the work. Because
like on the streets, or
no, inside the shop, like this, the doors open.
Yes.
I looked inside. He's sitting on the table and stitching a bag, and he had all these bags, and you could see that some stores were really storefronts. It was messy. There were bags lying everywhere. His dog was sleeping on the floor, and I could see, okay, this guy is the real deal. He's actually making it. So I went in. His English was not bad. We negotiated a bit, and he was like, "Oh, I'll find this teacher. this and that. And I was like, no, I want you to teach me. So he agreed, and I had a really great time. I learned a lot, and really immersive. I forced myself into that immersive teaching program.
Wow, look, those are the skills that, right? It's the starting skill sets of entrepreneurship. So you managed to charm your way, right? And does this teacher have a name? Would you share with us?
His name's Marco.
Marco.
His company is called Romiti Leather. If you're ever in Florence, look up Romiti Leather. It is literally a 2-minute walk from the Duomo.
Okay.
And everything he sells, he has made in the shop himself. And his dog's name is Leela. Very friendly dog.
Okay. So, well, chances are, right, we met at a very fortuitous time. I will be in Florence in about 3 weeks.
Okay, awesome. So we're definitely looking at that.
I'm gonna note that one down. Right, and
very cool.
Visit him.
Very cool.
Walk us through that process then. So, like, how did that training journey look like?
In hindsight, I was so naive.
Yes,
and I had some stupid ideas. Sometimes, I think about it and I'm like, my God, that was a stupid idea. But you do need to have stupid ideas and try them out to realize, and you never know, your stupid idea might actually click.
Yeah.
So while I was doing that, I'll tell you what my other stupid idea was. But while I was there, I would walk around and see, in my lunch break, I'd walk around and see the high-end shops, some Italian brands like Stefano Ricci and Prada and Gucci. They have their stores and you walk in and everything is expensive.
Yeah.
Everything isn't necessarily good. A lot of that stuff is very ordinary canvas stuff, but everything is super expensive. But the most expensive things in those shops was anything made with crocodile leather. So I saw that and I'm like, okay, crocodile leather, I got to see where this is coming from because everyone knows Australia has heaps of crocodiles.
Yes.
So I looked it up and I realized that, hey, a lot of this crocodile leather is coming from Australia. So my idea initially was to try and tap into the crocodile leather industry in Australia and try to leverage that somehow. I thought that geographically being here and having an interest in leather work, I'd somehow be able to tie those two things together. And I actually did an exploratory trip around Australia. I went to Cairns, Darwin, Rockhampton, and visited every crocodile farm that responded to me. And I actually later realized that many of them didn't respond to me because I don't think any of your listeners will know this, but there are about 30 crocodile farms in Australia. And over 50% of them are owned either by Louis Vuitton or by Hermes. So they have vertically integrated. So they own the crocodile, they skin the crocodile, they own the tannery. There's a tannery in Singapore called Heng Long, which is the world's premier reptilian leather tannery. So all the skins go to their own tannery in Singapore, and then all the skins go to France or Italy and get sewn into Birkin bags and Kelly bags. And so all the others who responded to me, they were independents, but almost all of them relied very heavily on LV and Hermes buying from these guys as well, because their own farms weren't enough to satisfy the demand. So I still went and met all of them. But the first crocodile I saw, he tried to eat me. And I'm like, okay, no, this idea is dead in the water. So from that idea, I switched over to, okay, let's just do something more middle of the road, come up with some nice designs, make some luxury products. So I actually I looked for some, it's called contract manufacturing. You find factories who just manufacture. Generally, most of them don't own their own brands. You reach out to them, you say, this is my design, this is the leather I want to use, this is the hardware I want to use, this is the color of the leather, and this is the quantity, blah, 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 blah. And they'll tell you, okay, yes, we'll make you a sample. You check the sample. This is the price per piece. Minimum order is 100 units per color, etc. So I actually went down that full path, and I made some prototypes, some in factory that were terrible, some in another factory which were outstanding. I still have them, and if I was to have carried on with that business, the products would have been very good. I don't know how successful I would have been at that business, because I realized that the business world isn't just making the best product out there or offering it at the best price. It is how well you can market it and let the world know that it exists and why they should be buying your product.
So the reason why you moved away from the crocodile, in addition to it being, a little bit scary, Was it to do with the market size as well? Like, did you
Yeah,
feel
I
it was quite a
realized
niche?
I realized that this is I am there's I offer no competitive advantage because the farm is owned by someone else.
Yeah.
The crocodile is owned by someone else. The tannery is owned by someone else, and actually I'm just an outsider in this.
So the barriers of entry are
Yeah,
so
yeah,
high.
exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
How could I compete with a brand as big as LVMH? They're one of the largest companies in the world. So yeah,
makes
they even
sense.
own. I don't think many people in Australia know, but they own RM Williams as well. So,
Ah.
so even every RM Williams boot sold in Australia is
Yes.
the profits going to Louis Vuitton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, didn't know that. And then when you started your second kind of offshoot
So I'll
leather
tell you how
venture-
that happened.
Yes,
So,
please.
yeah. So I was in the midst of product development. I had all these samples,
Yeah.
and some of the stuff was so I made custom hardware, custom bags, and a lot of this stuff was being made in China. We will come to it later, but China is the number one place I think to make anything. And I had just been to China to look at. So I met these factories in China, and I came back and I did my designs, and they were prototyping. This was December 2018, no 2019,
2019.
which is when COVID happened. So I came back and we did some prototyping, and then it turned into the pandemic.
Yeah.
And the factories, they closed down. So while they were closed down is when I got the idea for the headlights. So
Okay.
I was totally in this mindset of designing a product, making it, manufacturing it. And I set out just to make one set of headlights for my own car.
Yeah.
And I was like, already done all the research. I found somebody to make parts for me. What's stopping me from making this into, a business? And the quantity wasn't so large. The price per unit was small enough that the initial investment wasn't massive, So it was really something which was feasible. And it takes a really big effort to change that mindset from being super conservative and risk averse. And then once you let go and you're like, okay, no, I'm spending money on this idea, then it becomes really easy to say that, okay, no, I'll spend 10,000, 20,000 on this. And if it pays off really well. So
yeah. So at what point in time, like, did you say that this is an investment that you're prepared to, put quite a bit on the line? There must have been a moment.
I did the maths,
right?
Like a lot of maths. I looked at, there were a few things which I was considering when making these headlights. So we haven't introduced the product yet to the audience, but basically I make headlights for classic cars. So every classic car guy is driving with headlights where the technology hasn't evolved since 1950. So, when you turn them on at night, you're basically driving with candles. And with technology having evolved so much, I really was thinking that, we have LEDs, we have all this, all that. Why are we still driving with headlights that look like candles? And I looked, and other people had done some stuff with LEDs, but they were either really basic, or they didn't look correct, or they were like really expensive. So I was like, okay, this set of headlights costs so much. I can make that same thing for much less for myself. And then I was like, if I can make it for much less for myself, I can make it for much less in volume and sell it for the same price that this other company is selling. And my product's going to be better than this.
It sounds like it came out a bit of a passion project.
Yeah.
Then. So did you have some kind of an interest in classic cars?
Yeah. So I have a 66 Mustang myself. I've had it for over 11 years. And coincidentally, actually yesterday now, it's the clock's turned over in America.
Yes.
But the 17th of April, 1964, which is the day we're recording, is the 60th birthday of the Mustang.
Oh, wow.
So it was introduced on the 17th of April in 1964. So, yeah.
Happy birthday, Mustang. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you actually own your own Mustang.
Yeah.
Right? But I mean, I know that Australians love Mustangs, but I can't imagine it being pretty easy to get a Mustang over into Australia. Did you buy it locally?
So I bought it from a guy who had brought it over.
Okay.
There are some people who regularly ship cars over.
Okay.
With the aim of doing them up properly and registering them, which are two of the biggest. So you have to do them up to make them saleable, and you have to do them up to register them, and then you actually have to get them registered. They go over the pits, they get inspected, blah blah blah. So all of that. So he was in the business of doing that, but this car happened at a time when his wife got pregnant, and he's like, I don't have time to do up this car properly. So I got it at a good price. It came over from California, and he sold it to me pretty shortly after it arrived in Australia. So I'm kind of like the first owner in Australia.
For that particular.
Yeah. So I bought it. I fixed it all up. I had it registered, and
So was it a lot to fix that particular car?
There's wasn't a lot to fix to make the car right, but there was a lot to fix to get the car over the pits.
Yep.
And in hindsight, I'm very glad that I did all of that, first up, right? Straight up.
Yep.
So since I've had the car, it has been a really enjoyable car. I've seen some other people who they spend 99% of the time fixing their car and 1% driving it.
That's not you.
I've never had that problem. Yeah, so
you're more than happy
to
take it cruising.
I spend some time and money doing it up. And every now and then it needs something or the other, but I do all my work myself, which is part of the fun. So
yeah,
for me, working on the car is as much fun as driving it, but I want to be driving it more than I'm fixing it.
Yeah, fixing it. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think this pattern of you working on products, right, and designing it, right, it starts to show, right. Like even with your other ventures, previous ventures to Bangin Headlights.
Yeah.
Headlights, right? What were they used to be made of? So you talk about LED. Give us a bit of a genesis of how headlights are and how you came to select this one particular component out of everything.
Yeah.
As your business.
Okay, so headlights up until the 40s, every car manufacturer for every different model they made had a different headlight. It was basically a cone with a bulb and a glass in front, and every car had a different headlight. If Ford made 3 different models, they'd all have a different headlight. The next year, they made the same 3 models, but the models had changed. They'd again have 3 different headlights. So the Department of Transport in America said that this is getting out of control because any car shop, any mechanic, they can't physically stock headlights for so many different models of cars. So this, I'm very grateful for them to have said that we're going to standardize the headlight. And they said every car made from today in America has to have exactly the same headlight.
What date? What year?
I've forgotten when it was. It was sometime in the 50s. I think they mandated it, but it took some time for it to be standardized. But pretty much early to mid 50s, you'll see every single car had the same 7-inch round headlight. And sometime in the 60s, the Department of Transport said, okay, let's introduce a second size. So they introduced a smaller 5.75-inch headlight. Yeah. And then in the 70s, they introduced a couple more rectangular headlights. So those 4 sizes carried on pretty much until the late 80s, when plastic headlights started appearing, and those same plastic headlights carry on until today. So if I have somebody with a car from the 40s contact me, there's a chance that I might not be able to make something for them.
Okay.
If someone with a car from the late 80s or 90s contacts me, there's a chance that I might not have something for them. But anything between them, 100%, my headlights will fit their car.
Okay. And just for the listeners, right? Like, are these lights fluorescent light bulbs, or can you explain more?
So they're LEDs.
Exactly?
So the original headlights,
the original ones, correct?
The originals were incandescent. So it was basically two pieces of metal with a filament, a tungsten filament, or whatever they were using. Electricity passes through, and the electricity passing through, about 80% of it is converted to heat, and the remaining 20% is converted to light. And the light bounces off the mirror at the back, and you get a dim sort of light output going out. Those headlights, they look really nice. Even when turned on, they look really nice. They have this warm golden sort of glow, mood lighting, I like to call it. So that was the aim. The aim was to make a headlight which looks like the original because it looks good on the car. It suits the car. Yeah. If you make something too modern, there is an audience for that. And I do make a Restomod style headlight. Restomod stands for restore and modernize. So it's not fully modern. It is not fully classic. It's somewhere in between. And a lot of people opt for that style as well. Yeah. So I do that style, and I also do a traditional style where, unless you look really closely from 3 feet away, it looks just like the original headlight. When you turn it on, it still has that warm sort of light, but it's got an LED in there. it's got a projector in there. So when the light goes out, a lot of people tell me, oh, this is better than my 2000,
Spotlight.
2010
Yeah.
Land Cruiser or
Yeah.
whatever. So it's better than their daily driver now. So.
Okay. And what is a projector? What is that?
Yeah. Okay. So good question actually, because many people don't ask me this. So until even in modern cars, until the 2010s, most headlights, the light from the bulb, it shines on a reflector at the back of the headlight, and then it bounces out, and you get like a scatter of light.
Yeah.
A projector has like a solid chunk of glass in front of the light, like a magnifying glass, and almost like a laser beam, it focuses the light where you need it. So like a projector lens,
Yes.
You have a small image on a film, and the projector magnifies it and makes it perfect on the cinema screen. Similar to that, this is taking a small amount of light and focusing it and enhancing it and magnifying it and putting it exactly where you need it. It doesn't go in the trees, it doesn't go in other people's eyes, and it is really bright and really sharp.
Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting. How was the initial design prototype process? Tell us a bit more about that.
It was very interesting. Actually, funny story. I'll tell you. I haven't told many people because it sounds so funny telling people now.
Okay, exclusive here, listeners. So heads up.
So when I started, I mean, whenever you're doing a business, you want to do things on a budget, on a shoestring. You don't want to invest too much until you know that the idea is feasible, blah, blah, blah. So the way I worked was I found an engineer through a freelancer website, actually. He is my right-hand man job now.
Still with you today?
Yeah, so he is.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so he was so good. And I've always found this with freelancers as well. If I find someone good, then I just carry on working with them if their prices don't change too much. But so this guy, we had an awesome working relationship. Basically, what I did was I ordered some existing parts from existing suppliers. I was all like, let's try and like a Lego, it was like, let's buy this existing halo, let's buy this existing projector, and let's try to fit the pieces around it. So I got an engineer. I said, this is my 2D drawing. I need you to make this 3D drawing. And he made the 3D drawing, and I looked at it and I was like, yeah, this looks fine. And then the next step in prototyping, these days at least, I sometimes don't know how people did it in the past, but these days you 3D print it. So I was like, okay, I need to 3D print this stuff. So I called up a few engineering companies who did 3D printing. And in hindsight, it wasn't anything, but I was like, oh no, I don't want to pay $300 to 3D print this.
Is that the going rate? For
a few parts, it was like, so the way 3D printing works is you put your drawing. It's like a PDF. You open your PDF and you press print, but instead of printing on your laser printer, it prints on a 3D printer. And the software you use, it tells you how much filament is going to be used. So the filament's on like a spool, and it tells you in grams that to print this part, you're going to need 150 grams. And to print this part, depending on the complexity, it'll take so many hours. So if it's a solid cube, the same 150 grams will print much faster than if it's a complicated design. Because if it's complicated, it'll go much slower. It adds support structures. So every company that does 3D printing,
interesting,
they will look at how much material is going to be used and how long the print will take. And they have their own calculation to tell you how much it's going to cost. And obviously they put their markups and all in there. So I was like, $300, it sounds too much. And just coincidentally, so I don't know if you went to UWA.
I did.
So I got an alumni email. And there's all this stuff in the alumni email. Most of it is totally irrelevant. But I saw a note on there saying, the library has a 3D print lab. And you can register for 3D print with your student number. And I was like, okay, I'm not sure if this is meant for alumni or for current students.
Yeah.
But I had my student number. So I registered for a class.
Yeah.
And I went there and there were all these kids there. And some of them had just come because, they just saw the email and registered.
Yep.
They had no interest or idea in 3D printing. And the guy was just telling them that, this is how you design it. You can download parts from here. This is how you upload it.
Yeah.
And some other people had come, they downloaded drawings of like Pokemon figures or some stuff and they wanted to 3D print just for fun.
Yeah.
And I had gone there with this full headlight, this 3D, this 3D design, fully engineered.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this product's way too big. We have a limitation of 100 grams for
Okay.
preprints. And I was like, oh, come on, man. I really want to see what this looks like. And
Yeah.
they're like, okay, no worries, we'll print it for you. But your print's going to take so long that we need to set it overnight. So
Okay.
I went back the next day, back to university, and I got the print of the 3D printer. And that was, the first prototype of the headlight. And I actually still have it. And it was so raw. It was so basic.
Yeah.
There was like a million iterations from there to the final product.
Mm.
But it was really cool to see the idea to the 2D drawing to the 3D drawing to the actual physical prototype.
Yeah.
And as soon as I had that and I put all the parts together, even before you've put it together, you know that, okay, this is going to change, that needs improvement. And straight away it was like, okay, Rev 1, Rev 2. I think we probably did like over 50 revs on the first headlight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. 50 rev. Over what period of time are we talking about?
Oof, I've forgotten,
2 years?
No, so I think design so the way the process works is you do all your design. And I think maybe that process took 4 to 5 months of doing the design. And then came the second stage where I send the design to factories.
Before we start that, right, with the designs, was it hand drawn or is it CAD drawn?
No, so it's CAD drawn. We did all our designs in SolidWorks.
Yep.
That's the software my engineer prefers. So if it works for him, it works for me. So and this is the thing I've realized with freelancers as well. You tell them what you want and let them give you their best product. So I don't question him at all. I just tell him, and a lot of it is back and forth. So he opens up over Zoom. He opens up the design on his computer screen, and we're talking about it. I have the drawing, the drawing. I have the 3D print. I have the original headlight as a reference. I have my calipers and heaps of measuring tools, and we do all our measurements. We talk. He does the changes, and some of these calls go for like 4 hours.
Oh yeah.
So it's a lot of prototyping, development,
a lot of collaboration
over Zoom. Yeah.
Is he based in Australia?
No, so he's based outside Australia. So
Australia.
yeah, it's crazy, how this has happened. But he is really talented, So it's much more important to get somebody talented than to get somebody local. I think if you want the best thing out there, you got to find the best people. And his working style just worked so well for me that
really fitted with your lifestyle. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so design's done, right? And then next stage
is actually, this is the scary part,
Okay.
Send it. So I found a few factories, and I should have been cautious because it was my first time doing this. So I found, I had to make some parts in metal, I had to make some parts in plastic, and I had to make one part in glass. So I realized that, okay, a lot of factories do plastic, a lot of factories do metal, and a lot of factories do both. So my preference was to find a factory which did both the plastic and the metal. And then with glass, I had limited options because glass is, a dyeing material.
What does that mean? Like
the lens of the headlight is made of glass.
Okay.
There are many factories that make metal parts and plastic parts, but there are very few factories that make glass parts. And with glass, the majority of factories making stuff in glass are making bottles. So in Australia, you'll find factories that make bottles, but they can't make anything else. So the process of making, it's like a plate almost.
Yeah.
The process of making a bottle is very different from making anything else. So I had to find some factories that did glass as well, and they all get sent the 3D drawing, and they look at the drawing and they tell you whether they can do it, how much they'll charge per piece, and what is the minimum order quantity, and what the mold cost or the development cost is.
Okay.
And initially, everything sounds so expensive. Now, so many years down the line, I'm used to it. So if someone tells me the mold costs $5,000, I know that, okay, this is what it costs. But if you have no idea that's how much it costs, and someone tells you the mold costs $5,000 US dollars, and the Aussie dollar has not been doing so great against the USD.
Not very favorable right now.
No.
I
don't mind because I sell my products in USD. So I actually think in USD. I had this epiphany.
Yes.
Last year.
Yeah.
Where I went to buy something. So I used to look at pricing from from suppliers, and I'll be like, oh, so many USD is so many Australian dollars.
Yes.
I went to buy a Subway or something last year and looked at the price, and I'm thinking, oh, this is only so many US dollars.
Oh, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
$25 US
Exactly.
for that.
I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm thinking in US dollars now. So it took a while.
Yes.
But yeah, that day was a cool day.
that was a pretty cool day.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. Okay. All right. So going out to these factories, right?
So actually, I didn't go out. So this was all during.
Okay.
So all of this happened without me visiting. I still haven't met them. So I have a trip planned sometime this year to meet some of my crucial suppliers.
Yes.
Because I've been working with these people, nonstop, pretty much every single month, some communication.
Yes.
And like I know some of these people really well, but we've never met. So
yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me when so during obviously we have a lot of work right across Australia, and we have a lot of work coming out of Sydney and Melbourne. Same thing as well. Like there were some clients where we just started before January 2020, right? And then hit, and then we'll just continue working throughout, right? And for almost 3 years, just don't see each other. And then when we finally see each other, and I think you probably experience the same as well, it's like, oh, I really know you. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Never seen you before.
Yeah.
First time shaking hands.
Yeah.
But I feel that I actually really, know you.
The thing I'm not concerned about, but I'm expecting it, is that a lot of these people, their English isn't great. Some of them we speak, they set a video and they are speaking English, or we'll do a Zoom call and they are speaking English. But some others, I know that their English isn't good. They're just translating. So in translation, everything comes across well, but they probably don't speak English. So it'll be interesting to see how things are in person. And the second thing is that a lot of Chinese ladies, they upload like an anime picture on their profile picture. So some of them, I don't really know what they look
How
like.
they even look like.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
It'll be really interesting.
That is hilarious. Okay, so the fact that you mentioned Chinese ladies, right?
Yeah.
Am I guessing that the factories are in China?
Some parts are sourced from everywhere,
Okay.
And as products grow from different countries, and it's the same one product. In some batches, parts will be made somewhere, in some batches, parts will be made somewhere else. And some products, parts are made from all over. Some parts made in Australia, some parts made somewhere else, some parts made somewhere. I will give all my secrets away.
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
but that's just how it is. And with a lot of products, some places have, not just a competitive advantage, but some products are only made in some place. Like I was saying with glass, there are only a few countries in the world that make, so the glass is borosilicate glass, which is a hardened glass, like Pyrex.
Yep.
So if you drop it, or if you heat it or cool it instantly, rapidly, it
Shatterproof.
won't break. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a special glass, and the process it's made, the clarity it requires, you have to go to specific places. If you try to make it, even if you try to make it in USA, you will struggle to find a factory which does that kind of glass in the US. So
understand. So I mean, look, I think sourcing, right, I think it's part science, part art, right? Like it's actually very difficult.
Yeah.
To source it, and as you said, once you find someone that you can work with long term, right, you stick with that person, right? Yeah. Have you found many differences between countries when it comes to sourcing?
Yeah, I have.
If you have been to different countries before,
yeah.
Can you give us a bit of a flavor as to, because that is a fascinating world, because no one talks about this. Everyone sees the end result, right? They see that shoe, that bag, or that piece of equipment that's been sold in retail, but sourcing is a big part of it. Can you share a little bit more?
I find China. The CCP didn't pay me to say this, but I think they are just outstanding at manufacturing. So actually, going back to when I went to meet with leather factories, handbag factories, hardware, hardware for bags like fancy clasps and fancy locks and the feet which go below the bag.
Yeah.
Meeting factories and going to, so they have marketplaces, like you go to a mall, but in that mall, all they do is sell leather and tools and parts and hardware for the leather bag industry. So if you have a factory in China that makes leather handbags, you go to this mall, and on the ground floor, you can buy sheepskin leather and pigskin leather. On the second floor, you can buy cow leather.
Wow.
On the third floor, you can buy all the machines, all the sewing machines, all the cutting machines. On the fifth floor, you can buy all the chains like the whole floor is just chains. You want gold chains, you want black chains, you want rose gold chains, you want silver chains, you want chunky chains.
That is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh my God, this place is made for manufacturing. If you use Alibaba, people confuse Alibaba with AliExpress. AliExpress is buying cheap stuff, mass produce crappy stuff.
Yep.
Basically, it's
low
like
quality,
the poor man's,
low cost.
Poor man's eBay. Some stuff is pretty good.
Yeah.
But Alibaba is where the factories are. And there is a trick to, how you find a good factory, how you find a real factory, how you find a reliable factory, how you find a factory that is really a factory and not a trading company. So I had to, really educate myself on how do I know that these people are genuine. It could be, it could be Cheech sitting here.
Yes.
And you pretend like you're a factory which makes headlights. And I message you and you're like, oh, yes, we can make this. And then you reach out to the factory and you're just the middleman. So how to make sure that I'm not talking to a middleman? So with all that, and a lot of it was, say that I need this. Have you got something similar to this? Show me a photo, show me a video, show me 2 or 3 samples. And then when you have kind of vetted them, then you say, okay, pack this in a box and DHL it over to me.
Yes.
And then you can see for yourself that, okay, this is the quality. They have really made it. It has really come from this address.
Good.
Yeah.
Wow. Look, thank you so much for sharing, because I think it's actually very fascinating to hear these stories. So once that started prototyping, right? What was that part like? How long did that take, and what were the steps? in that
so
part?
Actually my favorite part of the whole job is product design.
Yep.
And then setting it and getting the first prototype delivered. So when you send the design, this is going to turn into like an engineering class, and I'm not even an engineer. So there's something called a DFM, which stands for Design for Manufacturability.
Mhm.
So you send them a design, and you and your engineer have made it considering manufacturability, because you don't want to design something which the factory says this is impossible to make. You make it thinking that, okay, we want to make something which is easy for the factory to make, fast for the factory to make, and cheap for the factory to make, because all those things mean that you get it fast and you get it at a good price. So we make that, and then the factory sees the design, and then they come back and they say that, okay, we need to change this a little bit, that a little bit. We need to make this thicker. We need to make this thinner. We need to add this draft angle. There's something called draft angles, which the engineers will know. But basically, a draft angle is placed so that when you make something in a mold, if the mold is totally straight, you can't physically get the product out. So there has to be an angle in there so that the product can slide out. So you have to put, so everything you buy has a small angle built into it. Even if the sides look square, it has an angle built into it so it can come out of the mold. So little things like that. So they'll send you the drawing, and they'll send you back your 3D drawing edited, and they'll send you a 3D drawing back of of the mold they're going to make for you. And it's very cool to see, okay, this is the mold, 2 parts. These are the runners. So they show you the place where the metal gets injected or the plastic gets injected. They show you the place where the water runs, because water has to run through the mold as well, just like an engine, to keep the mold cool or to cool the product down. Because hot plastic gets injected, it gets cooled down, and then the mold opens and the product comes out. So the most exciting thing is, when your finished parts come back, it's all powder coated or it's chrome plated, and putting the first headlight together is really exciting.
Yeah. How was that experience like when that first one came through the door?
So it came through, I instantly assembled things together and installed it in my car. And I don't know why I only did one side. I think maybe I did one side because I wanted to do like a before and after comparison. But that day I had a dinner at a friend's house down in Coogee Beach. And it's a long drive, and a lot of it was, on roads which weren't lit up. So I took my car with one old headlight and one new headlight, and I was like fully road testing it that night. And just with that one headlight, I was amazed how bright it was. And I knew that, okay, this product will succeed.
So it literally worked.
Yeah.
With no hitches,
whatsoever. At all. Yeah.
Wow. Very cool.
So really, it was, come up with an idea, just go with it, road test it. It worked. And then it was a bit more road testing to make sure there's no glitches. And then I kind of announced that this is the product going on pre-sale on this date.
Yeah.
And the response was very good.
Okay. So I guess now, now that you actually have a product that is commercially viable, put it that way, the next stage is also equally crucial.
Yeah.
Right? Because you know what they say, we can all build products, right? But if no one buys them, like, you don't have a business.
Yeah,
You just have a product.
Yeah, exactly. And so the way I did it, I wasn't thinking about doing it as a feasibility, but I was just, I came up with the product name and the logo. A friend of mine, I was at a wedding.
Yes.
And I was like, this is my idea for making headlights.
Yeah.
And I had a few names in mind.
Yes.
And at this wedding, I kept telling her, I have this product idea and have this name and that name. And we were waiting for the bride to come out. And I was fully obsessed with the idea. And I was like, do you think this name's better or that name's better? And she's like, oh, how about Bangin Headlights? Because it sounds cool. And, headlights mean something else as well. And maybe you can use that. And I was like, oh, I have the perfect logo idea. And
yes.
And I came home from that wedding, like 11 p.m. And it was like, okay, buy the domain name.
Yes.
Instagram handles and Facebook handles in my
secure all of that.
Just
assets.
Make sure that Bangin Headlights is everything in that realm is mine.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then the first post on Instagram was just the logo saying that this is what Bangin Headlights is going to be. And then a lot of it was just posting pictures, following other people, liking other people's stuff until the following grew. And then I was like, I started posting a lot of behind the scenes of prototyping and product development and ideas. And the following grew. And the following was small when the product launched. I think it might have only been like 500-600.
That managed to find you.
Yeah, who were like, oh, we can't wait for this product. I want to be the first person to buy this product. And it was really, reassuring. In hindsight, maybe it could have been a false reassurance as well. And maybe only those
just blowing smoke.
Yeah, only those 10 fans. And until they part with their money, you don't know that they're serious or not. And a lot of people, I've had a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to buy it, I love it. And they haven't bought it for whatever reason. Maybe they were just saying it, or maybe they can't afford it, or maybe
happened, right?
Yeah. So you never know. But those fans, some of them were super helpful, because when I made the website, I was like, I need people to test it.
Yeah.
When a Shopify store is still in testing mode, so I gave them the fake credit card numbers, that you test it, go to the checkout, see how it works, see what the shipping rates. Yeah. And so a lot of people did all that stuff, for me. So it was that feasibility.
Yeah.
Seeing that, people are excited about it, people like the product worked.
Yeah.
So
that market validation and the fact that you're getting help from the community.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like, serving its own purpose.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, you didn't mention Shopify. So can you really explain quickly what is Shopify?
So Shopify is the platform I use for hosting my website. Shopify is perfect, tailor-made for e-commerce. So if you see, if you ever have been interested in making a website, you'll get bombarded by ads by companies like Squarespace, WooCommerce, Wix, GoDaddy. All of these, some of them are made for e-commerce. Some of them are trying to look like they're made for e-commerce. So I spend a lot of time. I am a slow decision maker generally. So I spend a lot of time seeing what options are out there, seeing what the pros and cons of each were, seeing what each cost, how much of a commission each would take, all those things. So I did a lot of research, but everything pointed towards Shopify being worth the money. So Shopify is the most expensive one out of them.
Yep.
But everything pointed at them being worth the money. And I think the best thing about Shopify is that when a person decides they're going to buy it, there is nothing stopping your website from taking their money. So if they decide I'm going to spend it and they go to the checkout place, the checkout will go through. So there will never be errors on the checkout place with credit cards being rejected or PayPal not being offered. Or they have Google Pay, they have Apple Pay. Their payments processing is just second to none, I think. So I'm very happy with that.
Yeah. No, I think Shopify has definitely made its name over the past several years. And I think the way I look at Shopify is it's almost as if it's like the Apple in the ecosystem of mobile phones, right?
Exactly.
Like there may be certain restrictions, but for the most part, right, things just work, right?
Yeah,
just works.
I have my complaints every now and then, and a lot of people do, and a lot of stuff I found with Shopify that there are easy things they could do to make things better, but it takes them a long time to do it.
Yeah,
but it still works really well.
Yeah. No,
On the front end, the
Mm.
customer doesn't know the issues you faced, but on the front end, for the customer, the
Yeah.
store looks good, the store works really well.
So can you explain like some of the niggling issues, right? Because I mean, like all the listeners, right? A lot of them will be entrepreneurs themselves, and a subset of them will actually also run their own e-commerce companies. Like, what kind of challenges did you kind of, go through with like, setting up the e-commerce store, getting things to run, right?
Yeah.
And then as things progressed, right?
Mm.
What did you encounter
So
throughout
the
your
way I did
journey?
it was
Yeah.
so with Shopify, it's like a Word document,
Mm.
and you can do anything in that document, or
Yeah.
maybe Word's a bad example. It's like Photoshop. You can do anything in there. But what Shopify has are themes. So you've got all these themes, and the theme is like a basic template.
Yeah.
And not only is it basic template for how things look, but it's also basic templates for how things work.
Mm.
So, in one theme, your photos might, when you click a picture, it might open up full screen, or in some, you can't click, you just hover the mouse and the picture becomes full screen. So there are all these themes. So I opted for one of the free themes,
Yes.
which is what most people recommend when you're first starting out. So I opted for their free theme. I opted for the debut theme. I don't know if you know
Okay.
about Shopify themes. So I
Yes.
opted for the debut theme, which was their best free theme back then. And very soon after that, they came up with something called Shopify 2.0 themes, where there are a lot of improvements. And my biggest challenge has been migrating from. So I'm still using a Shopify original theme, a legacy theme.
A
they call
legacy
it.
theme.
So my biggest challenge has been to migrate. I just haven't had the time do it, and I want to do it really right.
Yeah.
And so the current website is 100% me, 100%
Oh,
me.
wow.
All the coding, everything is all me.
Yes.
So I really
Amazing.
feel like, I mean, maybe someone else can do it better than me, and maybe I should get someone else. But I feel like I want to take up the challenge and attempt the 2.0 myself as well, because I feel really good that, the website is 100% me as well, because I like doing this stuff. So
And you almost feel that you have a sense of,
ownership over it. Yeah.
or not just ownership, but control,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah.
you know every nook and cranny. Like,
mm.
why that code has
Yeah,
been placed
yeah.
there. You know why X
Exactly,
works.
exactly.
Because Y has to work.
I'm worried that, if someone else codes it for me, maybe I'm a bit control freak, but I don't want to.
Very particular,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I don't want unnecessary code. I want to know that, okay, all this code is original to the theme, or it's been coded there. And I have a degree in computer science as well. So I
Handy.
I go and then I tag everything really nicely there. Everything's commented and it says, added by me on this date for this reason.
Yep.
So when I go in there, I can see what are the bits of code that I added in there myself.
So a lot of trail.
Yeah,
All the
exactly.
trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like doing that stuff. So
Love it.
that's why I've done it. But there are a lot of issues I face because I haven't migrated. And I mean, there are a lot of features I'm missing out on. So that has been a big item on the agenda for me to do. And then there are a lot of limitations in Shopify, which Shopify will justify by saying, download this app, a third-party app or another Shopify app. And these are all features which I think should be integrated into Shopify.
Yes.
Or they'll do something, but they won't do it 100%. They leave it at 80%. And then you're like, what's the point doing it? Like, I'll give you an example.
Please.
Shopify bundles. So
Yes.
they came up with this bundles app. So
Yeah.
like I sell these headlights, but most people will buy a set of 4. So they'll have 2 low beams and 2 high beams. So instead of making them buy 2 low beams and 2 high beams, I make a bundle. And it's super convenient. Like, they just go and they buy the bundle and it tells me 2 low beams, 2 high beams. But if I have to manually make an order for them on the back end, I cannot add a bundle to a manual order. And similarly, if I have to share a product on Instagram or Facebook, I cannot share a bundled product.
Oh.
So why did you make this whole feature and then not go the last 20%?
And what did they say? Did you try to point that out to them?
And
Did
I
it-
don't have to point out. There are
So many
thousands of
people
other
complaining
people
about
who've
it already.
complained about it.
Okay.
They know about it,
They
but
know.
they just don't do anything.
But
But anyway.
anyways, so agenda 2.0, agenda 2.0.
Yeah.
So then we kind of like move on to the next stage. And this is where I'm actually really excited about, right? So how marketing, right, played a big role, right, in kind of taking your business to that prototype, right, that very first sale, right, and upwards. Can you give us that journey? Just how did you get that first sale? When did that happen?
Yeah.
Right.
So the first sale was one of the original fans. This is this girl called Amber.
Yes.
She's very cool. She's in the US Navy. She is when you watch Top Gun and those guys on the flight deck are doing that.
Okay.
She's a shooter.
Oh, she's a shooter.
On the deck.
Yeah.
So she's very cool. She has a 65 Mustang. So she bought the first set and that night, so I don't know if you've used Shopify, but on the phone, it makes this awesome ka-ching sound every time I say it happens.
Does, yes.
So the first night, and I said the sale is going to start at, I think I said, 9 a.m. California time or something, which is like midnight our time. And then the whole night I didn't sleep because the phone was going and sale would happen. And then I'd want to go on Instagram because I pretty much recognized the first 20 orders. I recognized every name from Instagram.
Yeah.
And that's where all the initial sales came from, Instagram.
From the community.
Yeah. This really small community of 500-600 followers. So that's where a lot of the sales came from.
Yep.
And then it was word of mouth. Like there's this one guy, I know his name is Steve. His name is Steve Ratliff.
Yes.
He lives in Fort Wayne in Indiana.
Oh, wow.
And every time, like I get an order and it is Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I know it's because Steve has stole someone. And then like Steve will post a picture at a car show and I can see these 3-4 cars all with Bangin Headlights, all at the same car show. So it's very cool when customers are so happy that they go and tell all their friends. And there have been a lot of customers like that in the US, in the UK, in Australia. And that's kind of how the initial flow started.
Okay. And obviously, like with marketing, you can go so many ways, right? And I think that's actually one of the challenges people face is that first of all they don't know where to start, right? My question to you is that even the right question? Like, how did you navigate your way from starting with nothing at all, right, to actually really figure out what worked for Bangin Headlights?
Yeah. So there's a lot of information out there, and the easiest thing to do, and this is the thing most kind of shoved down your throat, is you got to do Facebook ads and you got to do Google ads. And I was on a shoestring, So I was like, I can spend so much on Facebook. And I tried it, and I didn't get the results. At least back then, I didn't really get the results I expected. And I thought it's much easier for me to make a video or to give a set of headlights to someone influential and tell them to make a video. So I did a few things like that. I did a few. So I still do this in Perth.
Yep.
I tell people, if you want headlights in your car or truck or whatever, reach out to me directly. Come over. I'll do you an awesome deal. I'll film it. I'll take a bunch of photos and, give people a demo of how the headlights look, how easy it is to install, and how we shine the light on the wall in the dark and show you how bright they are. So a lot of that just through Instagram shows people that the product is real and there's a real person behind it, and it's really going into a car or truck similar to mine.
Also, how about expos? Like, did you ever get out to the community and actually exhibit and display your products?
So the thing which I started out doing was just going to local car shows. I went to a few local car shows. There are quite a few in Perth. There are too many to if I went to every car show every week, I would not have any time to make a single headlight. So I chose a few to go to, and just it was the same thing, just handing out flyers. And when people would contact me, I know that, okay, this guy's contacted me because he's interested. And I say, the price on the website is this, but I'll give it to you for this. If you come over, let me film it, all that. So that was the initial way I got started. But we went to a trade fair last year, which was really a game changer for us. So
which one? Where was it?
There's a trade fair in America, in Las Vegas, called the SEMA show. If anyone's a car guy, they 100% know about the SEMA show. It is the place to be. For that 1 week, the who's who of the car world is in Las Vegas,
Wow.
While we were there, Jay Leno was there. Jay Leno's garage. He's just one of 1,000 celebrities who was there. I was talking to a customer, and the guy who went with me from Perth, Demo, he came along to help me. He nudged me and he's like, "Oh look, there's Jason Momoa." And Jason Momoa is just like any other,
just like walking
around, checking out the exhibits, and it was really outstanding. But we got a lot of exposure, and we got a lot of cool people reaching out to us saying, we want your headlights on our bill. So
So did you actually hire a booth? So like,
Yeah,
what,
exactly.
what kind of presence did you have?
So we had a booth. We had we had the smallest booth you can get, a 10 foot by 10 foot. But I think it's more than enough for us. We, again, had like went all out and made a really good display, backlit LED display on the back with side banners and a front desk. And it was really good. And the other thing was that this was the shows in the US. I was overseas and designing the booth, talking with the designer who was in another country and talking with the manufacturer who was in another country. So it was really crazy, like it was this full-on collaborative effort. And then the booth was made in one country and shipped to the US, and we flew from Australia and we got there and the booth was lying in a crate. So we opened it up and that was the first time we saw it,
Wow.
And then we assembled it. It was a crazy, crazy experience, but so much fun. We're going back again this November. So.
Okay, so it worked out well. That,
it worked really well. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a lot of the exposure hasn't eventuated yet because a few people reached out and the headlights that they've got are still being built. So actually we shipped a set of headlights to Chevy Performance just last week.
Yes.
So there's something in America called Hot Rod Power Tour where a lot of car builders, classic car enthusiasts, they build up the cars and they do a long cruise. It's a circuitous cruise. I think it ends in Atlanta. It's in all these middle southern cities, Atlanta, Chattanooga, St. Louis, goes through Atlanta, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida. So it's a big deal. A lot of private enthusiasts, but Chevy Performance reached out. So this is directly Chevrolet reaching out and saying that for one of our high profile builds, we want these headlights. So they bought a set. So I don't know what they're building. It's a secret, but we'll see.
Okay.
And then there's a show on Netflix called Tex-Mex. Pretty cool concept. They're based in El Paso on the border between Texas and Mexico. And the concept of the show is they go across the border and they find some old classics, really rundown bad cars, and they bring them over to the US and they do them up and they flip them. So this season, every headlight they're using on their builds is going to be Bangin.
Oh wow. Okay, so that's like a partnership.
Yeah, exactly.
You would say.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's going to be quite exciting. So.
Wow. Look at you, different places everywhere. So what do you think has worked the best so far, and what's coming up? Like, what other plans do you have? So you got partnerships going, you got the trade shows going, right? You got obviously your social media is great. In fact, one of your social media posts, right? I think it was in excess of 2 million views.
3 million.
3 million views.
The
right?
credit goes to another customer, actually.
Yeah.
So it's very cool when customers turn into fans and they tag you as a collaborator in the post. So he made a video with our headlights and the video has gone past 3 million, which, like I was saying before, it's a vanity metric. It doesn't necessarily translate into sales, but it's very cool when that happens. So go viral. It's hard to go viral on Instagram anymore,
Oh, okay.
It used to be easy. There was a time when any video I made was getting 250,000 500,000 views, but Instagram wants you to play their game as well. So it's an evolving scene.
Changes all the time, right? Like day by day, week by week. Are you working out of an office in Perth? Or?
So I have a workshop attached to my house.
Yep.
So the workshop is the workshop, and one room in my house is my office.
Yep.
So that's how the setup has been. As it's grown, I have already outgrown it. So I hire storage space. Another friend of mine with a local business, he's got a massive facility in Canning Vale, not far from me. So one huge shelf in his warehouse is just my parts.
Yeah.
So that's grown that way. So
beautiful.
Yeah, just growing, not organically, growing when we're bursting at the seams and we really need somewhere to go. So that's how things are happening.
Okay, good. And do you have anything coming in the horizon, just really quickly, that you can share with Bangin Headlights?
So we have we launched a few new products at the trade fair last year. So they are all really catching up on, because it was a pre-sale. So in December we were catching up on November orders. In January we were catching up on December. So we're still catching up. So once we've caught up on that, we have at least 2 new products we're going to be introducing for the trade fair this year. So that's really exciting because, like I said before, that's my most fun job, is to develop and launch a product.
Okay, all right. So definitely stay tuned for that one. Now we're going to talk a little bit more. So obviously with Bangin Headlights, really amazing journey. But that journey always starts from somewhere, right? When you talk about the way, right? Like, what are some of the principles that you live by, right? So everyone has different principles, like, how they approach business, how they approach life, right? How, like, how is it that you approach life these days, right, to become who you are today? Because obviously successful, right, and visionary. I love it.
I don't
I
know.
really love your story. And also, how does your background, like your childhood, like did your family, did your upbringings influence you in ways in which actually, impact who you are today?
Actually, one of my aunties was telling me that her son, one of my cousins, said this, and I totally agree. And I used to be the same, that the whole family, we were too conservative, risk averse. So it was kind of difficult for me to break out of that. So to do the business, I had to really break out of um, the mindset which I had, which was to not take huge, because it is taking a huge risk, quit your job, not have a proper job for a long time actually, and spend money on something which is untested, untried. So, but having said all that, when I was a kid, and also when I was in school, and even when I was at uni, I always really liked making stuff, making something or the other. So my other passion, one of my other passions, is I love guitars, and I make guitars. I make electric guitars.
You make guitars.
Yeah.
Wow.
I haven't finished a guitar in a while,
Yep.
because some of these projects are really long, and every project is a one-off.
Yes.
Like, oh, this project is constructed in this way. The neck has this angle. The headstock is made of this material, and the body is constructed this way. And I wind my own pickups, and I do a lot of inlay, like mother of pearl inlay in the wood. So every project is like a dream project.
Yep.
But just that, and that it's kind of like project planning, project management. You have to figure out what parts you need, the sequence you're doing stuff in. It's got electronics, it's got painting, it's got a lot of woodwork. So I always really like making stuff, and I always felt like, sitting at a desk and doing a job is not for me. If I could make something, I'd really you can see the tangible result of
The
your
physical.
effort. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I wanted. And I went to school where I guess they really encouraged you to not be average.
Well, where are you from in India? Actually?
So I'm from Delhi.
You're from Delhi.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So you grew up in Delhi, born in Delhi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to the best school in the world, I think.
Oh, hey, fantastic. Yeah, really, really great. And then you came here. What age did you come here?
I was 18.
You're 18 when you came across, right?
I came with a driving license.
Important. Freedom.
Yeah.
What's your day to day, like, apart from working in Bangin Headlights, right? Like, what keeps you, right? Like, what makes you happy? What are some of your pursuits, right?
So this is the crazy thing. I actually really like my work. So even if the whole day I spend just making headlights, I really like it.
Yes.
So sometimes I tell people, like if I go out at night or whatever, and and they're like, and I say, I have to head home now.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, why? It's only 8 or 9. I really know I want to go home and I need to make some headlights.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, that's terrible. And I know it doesn't matter. I really like this.
Yeah.
So I actually really like making headlights, but at the same time, just I like going to the beach a lot. I like driving my car. I like fixing my car. I play a lot of music.
Yep.
I used to travel a lot before. Even after I have traveled quite a bit.
Yes.
I stay active in the Mustang community.
Yeah.
Not so much here, but in the US.
In the US.
So when I'm over in the US,
Yeah.
I have a few friends there who organize a Mustang cruise.
Awesome.
So all these like 60 classic Mustangs come out, and
Yeah.
so yeah. Life, at different stages in life, you have the same interests, but there are only so many things you can do at a time. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I do have something to ask you though,
Yeah.
George. Like, but you haven't brought it up yet. I heard that you're a very big Aerosmith fan.
Who told you that?
Is that true?
It is true. I have met a lot of massive fans, And I know that there are people who would compete with me for the position, but I would say I'm the number one fan. There are some other people who can rightfully claim that position as well, but I am a massive fan. I have been a massive fan of the band since maybe 97, 98. So
how did you start it? And how did you first hear about Aerosmith?
MTV.
MTV.
I still remember,
Home of style.
It was at a friend's house or something, and there's a video of a song called "Crying."
Yep.
Song came out in '94. I don't know when I saw it. Maybe I saw it in '94, '95.
Yeah.
But it had Alicia Silverstone in it, and the whole video is so cool. The song was so cool. The band looked so cool, and they just looked like rock stars, And the band had a very cool name, and that kind of stuck with me. And then as I kind of started developing more and more interest in music, I just was like, Aerosmith, I remember they sounded cool and something about them seemed cool to me. So I went and I bought this cassette, and I was full on obsessed with them. From that moment, I was fully obsessed with them.
Yeah, just listening day by day, buying all the new albums that come out.
I would on the back of my notebooks, I would be like, oh, when I see them live in concert, this is my dream set list. I'd make a list of 18 songs from their huge catalog over such a long time.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I hope they start with this song and end with this song. And I'd have all these crazy scenarios in my head. So when I actually got the chance to travel and see them live, it was a really dream come true.
And so you actually did see them many times, right?
Many times, yeah. I traveled. Before COVID, I traveled the whole world for watching concerts. And after COVID, I traveled in 2022 to see them. I saw 4 shows.
4 shows.
In Las Vegas. They were doing a residency, so it was very, very good to see 4 shows back to back. It was like, watch them one day, 2-day break, watch them again.
Yeah.
So I've done similar sort of things in Europe, South America, Japan, Australia.
Pretty much every tour, right? Have you been to every tour?
From 2011 when I saw them for the first time. I saw them pretty much every year.
Every year.
And then I saw them in 2022, and then 2023 last year.
Yeah.
I was supposed to see them, but the tour got cancelled because Steven Tyler had a voice problem. So this tour has been rescheduled for September, October, November, when I'm going to be back in the US this year. So fingers crossed.
Teed up?
Yeah.
All teed up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do they know who you are? Have you actually met
I've met all
them?
of them, but
wow.
They are rock stars.
They are.
They are surrounded every single day. There are crazy fans shouting, "Steven, I love you, Steven, I love you." And 90% of them are girls, so he's not going to remember me. I know that a lot of times, this has happened in Europe and it's happened in Japan, where I am the only brown person in the whole crowd, or at the hotel or wherever.
Yeah,
and so they know, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember you." And on a tour, if you meet them again and again, they remember you for that tour. But then the next tour, so much time has elapsed that and they're rock stars. They've lived the crazy lifestyle. The fact that their heads still work is
it's a miracle.
Marvel.
Yeah. Do you have a special moment? Do you have one moment throughout so many tours that really kind of stood out to you?
I've had a few. There was one in a show in Stockholm, and so there's a really good spot that we want.
Yeah.
It's at the front of the catwalk. So I have these 2 friends. They're Italians and they also travel, and they've been doing this since the 90s. So Steven Tyler, the singer, he really knows them, and he remembers them.
Right.
So they met him before this show, and we had already seen a few shows, and we were right in front of the catwalk. And Steven was like, "Hey man, I'm tired of seeing your faces. Let some girls come to the front." So at this show, we weren't at the front. We were just at the corner of the catwalk, which is still an awesome spot.
Yeah.
And so Steven, we were here, and he was singing there most of the time.
Yes.
And this was on Walk This Way, which is generally this is the last song before the encore, and it's a high point of the show.
Yeah.
So he was there, and he was singing there, and then he turned around and he was facing us. And he was looking right at me, and I was singing along,
Yes.
I was singing fully along.
Yeah.
And he was looking right in my eye and holding the mic. And he has a mic stand. He always sings with a mic stand.
Yeah.
And he was singing. and then he sang one line, and then he just put the mic stand
Oh no.
to me, and I
He
sang the
gave it to
next
you.
line. And while I was singing it, he closed his eyes and he was listening, and he was like, "Yeah, that you're singing it well."
Right, wow.
And then he took it back and he sang the next line, and then he gave me a high five.
Oh,
And that was very cool.
bro.
And the funny thing was that I went on Facebook and I said, "Oh, this cool thing happened to me tonight."
Yeah.
And then Aerosmith friends from Japan, they went on YouTube and they found videos that people sitting up in the bleachers had shot a video of the
that.
concert, and they found the moment and they posted it on YouTube, on Facebook, and it was so cool.
That is so crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's literally meeting your
Yeah.
stars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So wow. Number one Aerosmith fan. Well, in my eyes anyway, in my eyes. So man, thank you so much that you shared so much today, right? About your passions, Aerosmith, your passions with Bangin Headlights, with the classic cars and the guitars, right? I definitely feel that, we can certainly go on, but I definitely want you to come back to
We
the
got
show.
to come back and talk about, all the online marketing stuff.
Absolutely.
How
Yeah, absolutely.
a business like mine, there would be so many listeners out there who have e-commerce businesses, or even, offline businesses who need that online presence. Because
Yep.
I mean, we didn't get around to speaking about it,
Yep.
but you were asking about what the next step is in the marketing.
Yeah.
And there's one thing which every business needs is people to know that you exist. Because if they don't know you exist, they'll never consider buying your product, even if your product is perfect for them.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest challenge I face, and pretty much every business faces.
And actually, that's a perfect segue, right? Because you've gone through so much, right? For those that are aspiring entrepreneurs, not necessarily even just e-commerce, just running businesses, what would be your kind of takeaways, words of wisdom, right? What can you share that has really grounded you?
I'll tell you one thing which I follow now, and it's worked well for me. So when I was going back to the leather business, I was too focused on what other people would think. Also, every decision, I would have decision analysis paralysis, and I asked 20 people, "What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Is this better or that better?" When I started Bangin Headlights, I did not ask anybody anything. I just did everything myself. If it felt right to me, I did it. My mantra always was, I want to make something that I will put in my own car and be happy putting in my own car.
Yeah.
And I will treat the customers the way I want to be treated. So everything is, I do things without asking for second opinions from other people. I just do whatever I think is right.
Yep.
And I make the best product, something which I would be happy putting in my own car, and treat customers the best
Yeah.
I'd want to be treated. So,
Yeah. That gut instinct, right? When it's honed so well, serve its purpose.
Yeah.
Don't you feel?
most of the times, yeah, it has worked out really well.
Yeah.
And if something is a problem, it's all entirely my fault. So I have no one else to blame. And then it's a perfect learning experience. So
Yeah.
every small mistakes, nothing major, luckily, but every small mistake is a learning experience. So
Yeah.
you learn more by making mistakes yourself than by other people making.
And I would take it that further. I would say actually, if you're running any type of venture or company or business, especially if you are the head of that business, right, or the founder, you always look in the mirror, right, when something goes wrong, because in the end, the buck does stop with you, right? Maybe the reason why that project didn't go well is maybe because you didn't give the right instructions, or you didn't convey the right expectations, right? Or maybe the person that has been assigned to that project may not be the person that was suitable.
Yeah.
Right. I used to look to external factors just like you, and say, what, something goes wrong, it's because of that. But then I started to realize, no, it's because of me, because I didn't create the environment, right, for that particular project, task, whatever it is, to succeed.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
It's exactly true,
Yeah.
I have found in hindsight that I shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't have. Sometimes the person is right, but the person, like with one supplier, they work very slowly. They need a lot of string. They make a lot of mistakes. Their pricing is good. And they're very courteous and very polite. So I just have got to tailor my expectation that, if he says he's going to do it in 1 month, I should expect that it'll take him 3 months.
Yeah.
And once I change my expectations, things work all right.
Yeah.
So you have to change your expectations, and then you realize, okay. And I've had some experiences with a supplier. Like one supplier, they made a mistake, or they made a product which was not as per my requirements. And then it wasn't that expensive. Like it was a very small cost product and the quantity was low. But then when I received it, I was like, oh, this product is not right. We have to do something to fix it. And they just ghosted me.
Oh, really?
Which has never happened with anyone else before. But it was like, okay, have to be prepared for this as well. So as soon as that happened, I was like, okay, this is the product which they made. I fix it. I show the same product to another supplier, and I say, how much will you make this for me for? And then you have the other supplier. So small problems like that, when it's just when you say the buck stops with you. The other thing which I tell people, especially people in my family, is that when you work in a job, when there's a problem, you go to your boss and you say, hey, this is the problem. What should I do? In my business, everyone is asking me that question, suppliers are asking me this problem, that problem, and I have to make the decision. I have to figure out how to solve the problem. So 90% of the job, 90% of like 500% of the job is decision making. And sometimes the most important thing I'll do in a day is make a decision. And taking that decision only took me, 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And sometimes the biggest thing I do is decide that, okay, going with this and pay the money. When I pay the money, it's like, shit, I'm paying so much money for this. But then as soon as it's done, as soon as you've paid it, you're like, okay, it's done now.
Yeah.
Now I just wait for the product and everything will be fine. And generally everything is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, communication is just so important, right? Like, just communicating, right, to everyone. And it's absolutely right. Like, when you work in a salary day job, and by the way, I am still a huge fan of salary work. I think it suits many people.
Yeah.
Right. Just does not suit me. Like, but never say never. But right now, I think, I can't even imagine going back, to an employer-employee relationship, right? Like, it's funny. You said about, you having to go to one boss when there's a problem, right? People think that, when you're an entrepreneur, you actually don't have a boss. It's actually incorrect. You just switched one boss for 100 bosses. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't understand that part. Like, suddenly you're reporting to everyone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everyone that you have to pay money to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And the other saying which you might have heard is, I thought I'll quit my job so I don't have to work. And now I work 24/7.
Yeah. What happened to that? No one told us about that one. Why doesn't Forbes magazine talk about, the 60-hour weeks that you have to do for 5 years?
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy, but it's fun.
Yeah. No, most definitely. Okay, so where can people find you? So tell us where all the listeners and the viewers can find you and your business.
So the best place if you want to see what Bangin Headlights is all about is check out our Instagram handle, Bangin, BANGIN, Headlights, HEADLIGHTS. It's Bangin Headlights. Same thing on Facebook. Google search us, you'll find us there. Our website is banginheadlights.com.
Okay, and if they want to follow you as George Mittal, right? Do you have any outlets?
You can. My Instagram handle is UMANGU, Umangu.
Yeah, Umangu.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, George. It's been a pleasure to have you on here. And I think, man, the type of topics that we went through, boy, it's gonna really be exciting for everyone. I learned so much, by the way, personally.
No, glad to share, because nobody asked me. I am really passionate about product development and manufacturing. I didn't know this before I did it, but I really like telling people, because most people don't know how stuff is made, how everything they use is made.
Yep.
Yeah, so pretty cool.
It is very cool. Well, thank you so much, George, and to all the listeners and the viewers, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next episode.
Cheers. Thanks so much for having me on, man.
You're welcome, brother. All right, see you then.
Thanks. Thanks.
See you.